Yo, what's up, everyone? This is Terry with College Football Stop. Bring you another show today. It's November, the time for champions, right? That's what they say. I think it was Jim Tressel who said that. September's for pretenders, November's for contenders, something like that. Anyway, we had a obviously good weekend of college football, so I want to get into some of that. I'm going to get into some Ohio State stock up, stock down. And then the coaches met with the media, so we want to get into some of that also. I hope you guys enjoyed your Halloween. I did. Got to go out with the kids, go trick or treating. My daughter was dressed up as Wednesday Adams. My son was dressed up as like a skinwalker, so that was pretty cool. Lost my AirPods while I was out there, so whatever. It is what it is. I guess I'll get some new ones. But yeah, man, I had a really good time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed your Halloween. Let me know in the chat what's your favorite Halloween candy? What's your favorite holiday? Something like that. Let's get some conversation going here. But I do want to get into some of this stuff. I'm going to lead off with the college football playoff rankings came out yesterday. Obviously, that's something that we look forward to every single year. But at the same time, this early in the year, the college football playoff rankings is just for entertainment. It's just for something for people to talk about. Um, Obviously, it doesn't necessarily mean anything right now, but there is always like some underlying meaning with the things that you see. Like we'll get into some of it here. Like they'll put certain teams in certain spots to um, help like another team. Like like let's say a team is sitting at number 4, number 5, and they have a team coming up that maybe has 2 losses. They have them ranked in the top 20. That's going to count as a top 20 win. So let's go ahead and get into that here. Obviously, the big news from the college football playoff rankings: Ohio State coming in at number 1. I mean, I don't know if I like that or not, for real, honestly, because uh, this year I feel like we've kind of been working on an underdog mentality. I feel like a lot of people coming into the year said Ohio State would end up being a 3-4 loss team. Blah blah blah. They had a tough schedule, new quarterback, all that good stuff. And I think, at least 2 of those games that people were saying, actually 3 of the games people were saying Ohio State was potentially going to lose, they've already won now. So now they just need to stay the course, be all about their business for the next few weeks, and then go into Ann Arbor and whoop that ass without those signs that are drastically helping them. All right. What's up, Mark, brother? Thanks for coming, man. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the chat, obviously. Hit the like button, all that good stuff, if you enjoy the content, of course. But getting into the college football playoff rankings, so I actually put out a top 10 yesterday. I didn't. I guess I didn't put it out. I did a top 10 yesterday, and I had Georgia number 1, just because I kind of thought that's what the committee was going to go with. So I had Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3, Florida State 4, Washington 5, and honestly, that matches up really well, except for obviously Ohio State and Georgia flipped. So the playoff committee has Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, Michigan 3, Florida State 4, Washington 5, Oregon 6, and then now getting into the 7, 8, 9. Right, this was the teams that I had the most trouble ranking, because these are teams that you have to put really close to each other, but the way that they've beat each other and the teams that they've lost to makes it kind of hard. So 7, 8, 9 was Texas, Alabama, Oklahoma. Now, obviously, Oklahoma beat Texas. Texas beat Alabama. Oklahoma has the worst loss out of the 3, which I think is kind of why they ended up being behind even Texas, who they beat, because Oklahoma lost to Kansas this past weekend, and obviously with Alabama and Texas's losses coming to Texas and to Oklahoma. So I don't know. Then you get in to round out the top 10. They had Ole Miss. A couple other interesting things from the playoff rankings. Penn State came in at number 11, so obviously that's a top 11 win for Ohio State. And then Notre Dame coming in at number 15. Personally, I think that those 2 teams are probably at least top 12 teams in college football this year. If I'm just looking at like how good a team is, not looking at resume, um, I'm really high on Notre Dame. A lot of people are not, but I think Notre Dame has one of the best defenses in college football, and I think that a lot of teams would have problems with them because of that. So I don't know. Again, it comes in. They came in at 15 and 11, so obviously that's good for Ohio State. If those teams keep winning, those teams are just going to continue getting higher. And ultimately, if that would only help Ohio State if they were to somehow lose a game in the regular season, which I don't really see that happening. I think they're going to win out. I think that this team is kind of built different. I think this team is built as a, excuse me, as a championship team because the defense is just, I mean, the defense has just been dominant, and I don't think that's a fluke. I think that that's just how good this defense is this year. So, a couple other interesting things. Missouri came in at number 12, so don't be surprised if next week's college football rankings, regardless of what Ohio State does, don't be surprised if you see a flip flop and you see Georgia go to number 1, because the only reason they're not ahead of Ohio State is because of the ranked wins that Ohio State has, and Georgia's about to get a win probably over number 12 Missouri this weekend. So I wouldn't be surprised if they moved to number 1, which I'm okay with, honestly. I really kind of wanted Ohio State to keep that underdog mentality, and I think that they still will, just because uh, even during the college football playoff show or whatever they were doing, they put Ohio State at number 1, but they asked all the people on the show, and all of them basically said Ohio State's not the best team in college football. So I mean, I don't think they have been to this point. I think that if any team in college football had to line it up with Ohio State, that's a different conversation. Because, I mean, they haven't looked as dominant as other teams, but they also out of this entire top 25, Ohio State has the highest strength of schedule, I believe, at least out of the top 10 for sure. All right, let me see. There's some other interesting ones on here too. Kind of where they fell. USC falling at number 20 is interesting. I think, if I'm not mistaken, let me look this up to be sure. But I think USC has 3 losses already, and they're still ranked in the top 20, which is I gotta make sure they might only have 2. Let me see here. So USC lost to Utah, Notre Dame, and that's it. Okay, so they only have 2 losses. That one's not that interesting, honestly, but they have a really tough schedule to finish out the season, though. I mean, USC has to play Washington, Oregon, and UCLA the next 3 weeks. So I don't know. That should be a tough finish out to their schedule. But obviously, a team like that, I think once you have 2 losses, you're out of playoff contention, especially if you're not in the SEC. The only way I could ever see a team making it to the college football playoffs with 2 losses will be an SEC team, and you would have to have beat like 2 really good teams in the SEC. So, like, let's say LSU. This is not how their schedule aligns, but let's say that LSU were to like beat Alabama this weekend, and then beat Georgia in the SEC championship game or something like that. Then I could see a 2-loss LSU team getting in the college football playoffs. But there's no other conference that really has that set up, especially because the Big Ten has all of their best teams in the East. I mean, if the Big Ten was not set up that way, then you could see a 2-loss team get in. But really, I think the SEC is the only one that could happen. And I mean, it would have to come off the heels of beating Alabama and Georgia in the same season. All right, so yeah, that was really it. I mean, that was really it for the college football playoff rankings. I mean, it's like I said, it's just something for us to talk about. Um, I do think that it does matter because, a lot of people were saying if Ohio State were to lose to Michigan, it's good that they came in at number 1. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I'm not entertaining the if Ohio State lose to Michigan conversation, because I'm just not. I mean, first off, like I said, this is gonna change anyway. Ohio State's not gonna be at number 1. There's a potential that they could be at number 1 to go into the actual playoffs as long as they went out, because they would have a big win over Michigan at the end of the year with a really good resume with you would have the 2 wins against Penn State and Notre Dame, the win against Michigan, who's going to be a top 2-3 team when they play, as long as they don't lose. And then you're going to have the win over Wisconsin, who honestly, I mean, I feel like they were a pretty good team. Wisconsin could win the rest of their games and end up being a ranked team at the end of the year. And then if that does happen, I think they would end up playing Wisconsin again in the Big Ten championship game. unless a team like Iowa were to make it. But I think that whatever team makes the Big Ten championship game from the West is at least going to be ranked. They'll probably be somewhere in like the 20 to 25 range, but they'll probably at least be ranked. So I don't know. That would be a hell of a resume to have wins over, let's say, like the number 4 team, 5 team, assuming that Ohio State beats Michigan, right? What the rankings would look like after that. So this is also assuming that Michigan beats Penn State, which I could easily see that not being the case. But anyway, so at that point, you would have wins over like number 5, number what? Let's say Penn State probably finishes at like 11 or 12 if they lose to Michigan. They probably drop and then move back up a little bit. Notre Dame could easily win out and finish in the top 10. And then you have one more top 25 team out of the West, which could potentially end up being a Wisconsin team that you've already beat, and you would be playing them twice in the same year. So I don't know. I think Ohio State is in a good position to make the playoffs. But like I said before, I'm not really a big fan of them being ranked number 1, just because I don't think that they're the best team in college football, and I think that the college football playoff rankings are supposed to be who's the best team in college football. It's not supposed to be who has the best resume. A lot of Ohio State fans talked about like, oh well, Ohio State deserves to be ranked number 1, which is fine. Like, okay, based on their resume currently up to this point, yeah, maybe they deserve to be number 1, but they're not the number 1 team in college football. Realistically, Ohio State should probably be at like 3 or 4. I mean, and I would probably be more okay with that. But either way, I'm not gonna be upset about being number 1. Hey, whatever. It is what it is. I mean, I know I've seen a stat. I wish I could find it, but I'm not gonna be able to find it right now. But there's like a stat out there that the number 1 team in the first college football playoff rankings never wins the national championship, or hasn't up to this point, I think. So that's not good for Ohio State. But at the same time, like, I mean, that stuff is all just fluky anyway. Like Ohio State won the national championship as the number 4 seed, the very first national championship. So, or the first, I'm sorry, the first 14 playoff. Ohio State won it as the 4 seed. So it would be awesome to see Ohio State win the first and the last 14 playoff. And then going into next year, college football is going to look completely different. So I'm excited about it, but at the same time, I'm not a huge fan of it. I think the regular season is going to not mean as much. Obviously, when you're watching a game or playing in a game, it's still going to feel the same, which that's all fine and dandy. That's good. But at the end of the day, it's not going to mean as much. If you can lose 1 or 2 games and get in the playoffs, as long as you're playing your best football at that time, you could go out and win the playoffs. So it's going to be more like the NFL, and it's really one of the reasons why I'm not the biggest fan of the NFL, is because I don't really want to spend my time watching a meaningless game. And that's kind of what it is. Like I tell my buddies all the time, I'm like, these games don't even mean anything. It's game 2 of the season. It doesn't even matter. Like, I don't know. I mean, obviously it does in the long run because you could be left out by one game, but I like that college football, you got to bring it every single week. That's why it's my favorite thing to watch, my favorite thing to consume. All right, so moving on from the playoff rankings, there's a small update on the Michigan stuff that's going on. Obviously, there's the staffer that was on Michigan staff, Connor Stallions, supposedly was seen on the sidelines of Central Michigan with their coaching staff as they were playing against Michigan State. I mean, listen, yesterday when this came out, I didn't really believe it. It didn't look like him too much. But at this point, I think that it's him. And then there was Central Michigan's coach had a press conference, and he was like, I'm aware of the picture of the sign stealing guy. I couldn't believe he called him that. He didn't even call him his name or nothing. He's like, yeah, the sign stealing guy on our sidelines, and we're investigating it. He's like, he didn't have any like on field pass. There was no on field pass in his name or nothing like that. So I don't know. When the way he was talking, it kind of sounds like it is the guy. It is Connor Stallions, or at least that's what that university thinks that it is. And if that comes out, it just throws one of the narratives out the window for Michigan, because one of the things that Michigan fans have been running with is, well, no rule was broken, because as long as you don't have your coaching staff on the sidelines, then that doesn't go against the rule. It doesn't say anything about hiring people who are not workers of the university to go in and do it. Either way, I mean, okay, if you're proud that you think you found a loophole to cheat and make your team better, it is what it is. But at the same time, if this was him, then that narrative is out the window because now we know that as long as Michigan didn't have a game that day, he was probably at other people's games. How do we know? Like this past week, Michigan had an off week, right? How we know he wasn't planning on going to the Ohio State Wisconsin game? Maybe he was. I mean, if again, if he did it and he was actually at that game, that is just another level or another layer to this story. And as the layers keep coming out, it just keeps getting worse and worse. Um, Michigan, there was a lot of people. I don't know if it was like media guys, beat writers, coming out yesterday saying that Jim Harbaugh was going to be signing his contract. So it was like the day before that, the news came out that it was rescinded, and then the next day they were like, "Oh, they're fast tracking the contract," and then nothing happened. So I mean, at this point, it's hard to believe anything that really comes out about this story. But at the same time, we're going to keep talking about it because, I mean, it's crazy. I think it's going to end up being one of the craziest stories this year and in college football in like the last decade. So I don't know. There was really nothing else about it that came out. I'm gonna move on from that. Just I don't know. I'm excited to see the details continue coming out because um, I think Michigan's been up to some shady shit. I think when Harbaugh got in front of a camera and said we're gonna beat Ohio State or die trying, I think he probably said we're gonna beat Ohio State and die trying because I think both of those things are gonna happen. Not this year though. We're beating their asses. Anyway, I want to get into some of the things that the Ohio State coaches had to say. So yesterday, Ryan Day and Jim Knowles met with the media. Ryan Day had some interesting things to say, in my opinion. He was asked about Kyle McCord and his health because if you go back and watch the Wisconsin game, Kyle was struggling. I mean, he was hurt. Even doing things like checking plays, coming back up to the line of scrimmage to check a play, you can see that he was limping pretty bad and was his left ankle was not great. So I don't really know if he needs like a week off or if it was just bruised and he'll be good to go. But if he does need a week off, hopefully, actually, you know what? We'll wait on that. Let me finish the first thing I was saying. So anyway, when Ryan Day was talking about Kyle McCord's injury or asked about it, he kind of brought like a no excuses mentality. He was kind of like, look, everybody's hurt this time of the year. It is what it is. Like you just gotta like you wanted this job. This is the one of the biggest football jobs in college football is to be Ohio State's quarterback. And he didn't say anything like this, but he basically had the attitude of like nut up or shut up. Like let's go. I get it. I get that it hurts, but it that makes me think that the injury is not like something severe, like something broken. I mean, we'll see if it is or not. But it just seems like Ryan Day is kind of just like, look, man, like if you're the quarterback, you're the leader, let's go. Like I'm not going to go out here and make excuses for you. If you played a bad game, it's not because you're injured. Like if you're too injured, then get out of the game. So, and he said that that on the sideline when Kyle McCord was hurt and Tristan Gebbia started warming up, he said that Kyle told him he was good to go, so he just went with it. So I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. We'll see if Kyle is 100%, or I mean, he's not gonna be 100%, but we'll see how good Kyle's foot looks this weekend when they play against Rutgers. Another thing Ryan Day said was that Devin Brown should be back at practice today, which it was yesterday when he said that. I love hearing that. I think I tweeted out a little thing that said like the little Undertaker, excuse me, the little Undertaker rising thing when I said Devin Brown when he saw Kyle limping. But I mean, I think that Devin Brown is as good as Kyle McCord, and I've always thought that he's as good or better. I think so. Having him back is great, and it's really big for Ohio State because that red zone package I think is needed at this point. It's not just something that I like; it's something that is needed. This offense is not good in the red zone. They're not good once they get past like the 40-yard line, and I think having Devin Brown be a part of that offense in that way is going to be huge. And who knows? Maybe we'll see him in some other roles too. I know Ryan Day was planning on using him in like a 4-minute drill too, just to kind of create some better opportunities in the run game. So maybe we'll see that this weekend if he's healthy. Um, I don't know when we'll get another update about that, but I think if he's just now getting back to practice on uh, on yesterday, which was yesterday, Tuesday. If he's just now getting back to practice on Tuesday, probably not going to be good to go this weekend, but we'll see. Hopefully he is. I don't know. Like I said, it's just something interesting Ryan Day had to say. And then the last thing about Ryan Day, the one thing that he does to me and that he's been doing this whole year is that he is like exuding confidence and calmness when it comes to the offense, right? Ryan Day is not someone who's going to panic anyway. However, Ohio State fans seeing this offense, we kind of are panicking because it's kind of like how I said, how I've been saying all year that this offense could lose us a game. And Brian Day doesn't have that mentality. He's kind of like, look, the defense is playing great. We just need to play complementary football. And I think that being an offensive guy, he's like, I can fix this. We're gonna fix this. I know what I'm capable of. I know what these guys are capable of. I know that we have some of the best players in the whole country on this side of the ball. When you look at guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, Travion Henderson, I mean, I think Ryan Day is just like, look, we'll get it together. And I do think that that's going to happen. I think the offense is going to continue growing and continue putting up more and more points. I just think that it's going to look a little bit different than what we're used to. Even what we've seen throughout this year, I think it's going to continue getting better, and it's going to continue evolving. And we'll get into some of that here in a minute because I want to talk about the scheme that the run game did or the running game scheme that they used against Wisconsin that I thought was really interesting. So Jim Knowles, I mean, he didn't have a ton of cool things to say or interesting things in my opinion, but he really hasn't been this year just because the defense is playing great and he's just had that like, yeah, we're playing great, but we need to continue getting better attitude. He did talk about Lathan Ransom being out. I do think this is probably going to be like a multiple week thing. Ryan Day said that we'll know more in a couple days. So it seems like maybe he has like a test or a procedure or something that has to be done that they won't really know until it happens, whether they're expecting him back, right away or it'll be a little bit longer of a thing. Obviously, Lathan's injury was a non-contact injury. He pulled up when he was just running and just ran to the sideline, so that's never good. But I don't think it's like a season-ending thing because usually, if that's the case, Ryan Day will let us know. So we'll see how that plays out. But when Jim Knowles was talking about that, he said that Sonny Styles is going to move into that position. So I think this is awesome because I think that Sonny Styles is one of the best players on this team overall, especially on this defense. And I always said I hate that teams can decide whether they want to play against Sonny Styles or not. And when I said that, I meant like if a team wants to put three wide receivers on the field and have, like, let's say they have good enough wide receivers, obviously, to make Jim Knowles change his package. But usually, like, if they put three wide receivers on the field, Jordan Hancock was coming on, which don't get me wrong, because I want to talk about Jordan Hancock a little bit later. I think he's a phenomenal player. But that Sonny Styles was coming off the field and Jordan Hancock was replacing him. So that the way I viewed that is teams could decide whether they want to play against Sonny Styles or not. And I hate that because in my opinion, he's a playmaker and we need him out there. So Jim Knowles said that he's gonna replace Lathan in that like bandit spot or that like strong safety spot that Lathan has been playing. So I think that we're gonna see this defense with Sonny Styles and Jordan Hancock on the field at all times, and I think that if they're not gonna miss a beat. Like if you look at the Wisconsin game, Lathan got hurt in I think the fourth quarter, and Sonny Styles came into that position without practicing it all this week. Obviously, he probably gets some reps in there, but that's not what he was doing throughout the rest of the game. He was not playing that position. So he comes into that position that Lathan's in, and he gets two PBUs within like two drives. I mean, again, he's a playmaker. And some of those like blitzes and stuff that you see Lathan Ransom coming on, having Sonny Styles coming on those blitzes is gonna be huge. So I'm gonna actually let that take me into my next topic here. So I'm talking about Sonny Styles. I want to move over to my stocks. I have some stock ups, not really any stock downs right now because the team I feel like is playing great. Um, I guess the only stock down that I could have would maybe be Kyle McCord. But after the second watch and looking at the All 22 film, he didn't play as bad as I thought he did against Wisconsin. Obviously, has to clean up a lot of the mistakes that he made. However, I'm not going to really put any kind of stock down on him right now because I think that he is getting better as the year goes on. But I just don't. I don't know. I don't see like championship caliber play from him, and I think I was telling some of my buddies yesterday. I think that a lot of the issue I have is just the way that it looks. It doesn't. He doesn't look like he's played quarterback for his whole life. And I mean, hopefully he'll continue to get better, and that maybe he'll get healthy, and that will start to look better. But anyway, let's keep it on a positive note. I was talking about Sonny Styles. I'm buying more stock in Sonny Styles. I think that with him playing this position that Lathan Ransom was playing, I think that that simply is just going to get him more reps. And a guy like Sonny, when you give him more reps, what that equals out to is more experience and more plays. And I think that Sonny Styles is going to have a huge impact in every game that he plays in from this point on, especially if Lathan is, misses a couple weeks and Sonny Styles is able to get those reps and is able to be put in positions to make plays like how Lathan Ransom is all the time. Obviously, freak athlete, and I mean that dude is just a baller. You could see it in the Wisconsin game; he was balling. So, what's up, Evan? Man, thanks for coming, brother. I appreciate you. Obviously, if you guys in the chat, man, if you got any questions or anything, or you want to expand on anything I'm talking about, let me know. Obviously, hit the like button, all that good stuff, so we can get more people in here as we go on. So. All right, so the next stock that I wanted to buy, I'm going to stick on the defensive side of the ball, and I'm going to go with Ohio State's defensive line. Now, during the Wisconsin game, I was texting some of my buddies, and I was saying our defensive line is not really doing much in this game. After watching that game again for the second time and watching the All 22 film, this defensive line is the best defensive line in college football. I don't know why I felt like they were not doing anything, but I mean, all the way down the line, if you look at JT Tuimoloau, Tyleik Williams, Mike Hall, Jack Sawyer, Kenyatta Jackson, Hero Kanu, Ty Hamilton. I mean, every guy on that defense was out there looking dominant. They were looking really good. And I mean, I just can't say enough good things about them. I think that we have easily 2 first-round picks on this defensive line, possibly 3. I'm being a little overzealous. Easily 2 first round picks on this defensive line, and easily 4 NFL players. Put it that way. Jack Sawyer is someone who I probably should have gave him his own stock up just from this game alone, but I'm going to stick with just the defensive line. He's a guy who's been taking a lot of flack this year, but this was probably his best game as a Buckeye ever, and it doesn't really show up in the stat sheet. And that's how JT Tuimoloau has been all year, where he's starting to get some statistics now. However, throughout this year, he has been really dominant, and the stats have not shown it. Jack Sawyer has not really been really dominant. He's been just a good player doing his assignment. But in this Wisconsin game, Jack Sawyer was dominant. He was a really good. I mean, he was out there just getting past people, put a couple pass rush moves on guys. And you know what? I actually stand corrected because I said it doesn't show in the stat sheet, which it doesn't in terms of like sacks. But Jack Sawyer was the the second leading tackler on the team in this game. He was Tommy Eichenberg had 7, Jack Sawyer had 6, and he tied for first with the most solo tackles. So Jordan Hancock had 4 solos, Jack Sawyer had 4 solos. I mean, he was looking dominant, man. There was one play I remember in particular from watching the All 22 film where Jack Sawyer got blocked by one guy, threw him off to the side, had another guy come, threw him off to the side, and tackled the running back at the line of scrimmage. And I mean, it wasn't a double team, right? They didn't double team him at the same time. But he did get past one guy, which ultimately took up a puller, okay? A puller who was supposed to block somebody else. Instead, they had to block Jack Sawyer, and that guy was even not able to block Jack Sawyer. He threw him to the ground, tackled the running back at the line of scrimmage. I mean, those are just plays that, like, I don't know, if you got a small pass rush guy out there who can get after the quarterback and he's super quick, that's all fine and dandy, but is he going to throw and two offensive guards to the side and make a tackle at the line of scrimmage? Probably not. So I think that I owe Jack Sawyer a little bit of an apology. Stock up on him in the defensive line overall. Um, yep, and I agree, Evan. The defensive line is a unit. That's the thing. When you look at them, you're not looking at like, okay, we have one dominant player who's going to get 10 sacks. Now, we could still see something like that with a guy like JT Tuimoloau. He could end up turning up and having like a 3-sack game in the next few weeks and could end up finishing at like 10 sacks. But overall, this is a unit, a defensive line that altogether you're going to have problems with because they are good from start to finish, top to bottom, left to right. I mean, good everywhere. All right, and then the next stock I wanted to talk about here, another one that people were kind of down on in the last few weeks. So I'm gonna buy stock up on Justin Fry, Ohio State's run game coordinator, offensive line coach. I think that people gave him too hard of a time when a lot of the issues in the run game were not on the offensive line. Now, I think that he also needed to adjust to that, being the run game coordinator, and I think that he has. That I mean, this kind of leads me into the topic I was going to talk about earlier with the run game scheme. If you watch what Ohio State was doing against Wisconsin, it was night and day, completely different than what they've done in any other game. Excuse me. And I'm not just saying that because of the success that they had. I'm saying that from just watching the film and watching what they were doing. Tons of gap scheme runs, tons of misdirection. We're doing plays where we're pulling like a guard to the left, but the run play is ultimately going to the right. So again, you're just freezing linebackers. You're making things hard on the defense and not letting them hone in on what you're doing. Because before we were running a lot of stretch, and it just all that did was allow the defensive line to slant one direction and kind of shut down our run game. And honestly, I think our offensive line is not as good at blocking stretch as they are at blocking like gap schemes. I think those guys like to get out in space and kind of get moving and make some plays. So, and also the line's been great in pass pro all year. I mean, there was like 2 or 3 times where the pass pro broke down in the Wisconsin game. Same thing with like the Penn State game, only like 2 or 3 times. Same thing with like the Notre Dame game, only 2 or 3 times. But that's going to happen. Like no offensive line is going to allow like zero, I guess, pressure on the quarterback. That's not going to happen, especially not with an offense like this where you're dropping back into coverage. I'm sorry, not dropping back into coverage. What am I talking about? Anyway, especially with an offense like this where you're dropping back and sometimes you have long developing plays, the offensive line is not going to block for 4 seconds every single time and never allow pressure. That's just simply not how it is. And it's up to the quarterback to make some guys miss, step up in the pocket, move the pocket around. But overall, they've still been really good in pass pro. And I think that the run game is starting to come along. I think that this team is going to start leaning on the run game because with TreVeyon Henderson being healthy and this offensive line playing the way that it is, I mean, the defense playing the way that it is, lean on the run game. And when you need to throw the ball, you have Marvin Harrison Jr., you have Emeka Egbuka, you have Cade Stover. Like, when you need to throw the ball or when you want to throw the ball, there's no reason for that to not be successful. But if they can run the ball successfully, that opens up the throwing by, tenfold, right? Once you start running the ball and they have to really focus their attention on that, that takes away double teams on Marvin Harrison Jr. That takes away double teams on Emeka Egbuka because then those guys have to be in the run fit. So I think that's going to be the identity of this team. We're just going to have to get used to it. Hopefully they continue to stick with it and they continue to be multiple in the run game and don't fall back on that just zone to the boundary, stretch zone to the boundary shit that never seems to be super effective. So, yep, and I agree with you, Evan. That's another thing. Like when I'm talking about stock up with Justin Fry, I'm talking about in game. I'm talking about development. I'm talking about that stuff. Obviously, there's a whole nother aspect to a coach, which would be like, how do they recruit? And so far, Justin Fry hasn't been phenomenal, but I also don't think that he's been terrible either. I think that he is. This is his second year with Ohio State. Obviously, we haven't landed like the big 5-star recruit or nothing like that. But at the same time, like if you can have a great offensive line every single year, I'm okay with it. I think that you have a great offensive line a couple years in a row, and those national guys start to see like, oh shit, these guys are getting guys drafted. They're they have a dominant offensive line over there. That's how the recruiting is going to pick up. I don't think that recruiting is just simply about like this guy is not able to get the players. I think that a lot of it has to do with the success. Um, Now, at the same time, though, Ohio State typically does have offensive linemen selected in the draft, so that kind of already should be there. And it's Ohio State, so it shouldn't necessarily be super difficult to recruit if you're an Ohio State coach. But I don't know. I'm not going to really dig into that too much because recruiting is not really my forte. But anyway, that was my stock ups. Oh no, I have one more. One more. I forgot. All right, this one big stock up for TreVeyon Henderson. I think that Trey still could end up being a first round pick. That's how good I think that he is, and I'm going to tell you why. Right? I think that this year he's been great with his vision. He's been elusive. He's faster than he ever was. He's stronger than he ever was. And a lot of people were not giving him credit for that because of how he was last year. Anytime that he does like miss a gap or, anytime he doesn't make a perfect play, people are on his head because of, last year he had a lot of issues like that. But this year he's done a lot better at seeing the holes. He's done a lot better at pushing it to the heels of the line and then finding the right hole to explode through. He's been breaking tackles. I mean, and one of the underrated things, actually two underrated things about TreVeyon Henderson that people don't talk about enough, in my opinion, is his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. He had a drop against Wisconsin. Everybody wants to say that it was a drop, which is fine. Okay, if he caught that, that would have been a hell of a catch. Like that would have been a catch that if one of our wide receivers caught, we would have been like, "Whoa, what a catch!" He's a running back who's short with short arms. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm not gonna hold him accountable for that. Not catching a jump ball that was over his back shoulder. I mean, I would love to see him catch that. Maybe he'll work on it and get better at it. But overall, he's very good coming out of the backfield and catching the ball. I mean, you look at the Wisconsin game. TreVeyon Henderson was the second leading receiver on the team. 4 catches for 45 yards, 11 yards per catch. Um, I mean, obviously, if he caught that one, it would have been like a 20 or 30-yard touchdown, whatever. But he is really good coming out of the backfield and catching the ball. He doesn't drop passes usually. Like I said, if you want to put him on a deep route and have him see if he can catch it over a defender, maybe you'll have some issues there. But underrated aspect of his game. And then the second underrated aspect of TreVeyon Henderson's game is his blocking in the backfield. Chip Trayanum is a phenomenal blocker, and he's a big dude, a big athlete, right? But I think TreVeyon Henderson is better at blocking from the backfield. If you're gonna ask one of those guys to roll out of the backfield and hit guys as they're going downfield to block, yeah, Chip is way better at that, and he's just a phenomenal football player. But if you want someone to sit back there, read where the pressure is coming from, and put a block on someone to protect your quarterback, TreVeyon Henderson's the best at that. And I mean, those things are things that are going to boost his stock in terms of his NFL draft grade. That's why I think that Trey can be a first round pick still to this point. All right, so that was it for my stocks. Again, I'm just super excited about this football team, man. I love watching this defense play. The offense, I hope they continue running the ball. That shit is demoralizing. You don't think it's demoralizing for a team when you got Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka, and then you hand the ball off to TreVeyon Henderson, he runs for 40 yards? I mean, I couldn't, as a defense, that's going to be hard to stop. And I think that if Kyle continues to get better and we fix some of our red zone issues, this team is going to go quickly to being the best team in college football. I think that could happen starting this week. So I don't know. I'm excited about it. I hope you guys are too. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up now. I'll be back live again tomorrow at 11 a.m. So thanks for coming, guys. I appreciate it. As always, hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff, and come back for more content tomorrow. And we'll be getting more into this Ohio State versus Rutgers game. Maybe some hot takes, some bold predictions, something like that. But peace out, guys. You guys have a great day.